Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Dom Limited. We actually had a few interesting questions or technology questions that popped up within the last 2 days. And one of them really is, and actually, I really thought it was an interesting question that somebody asked. Somebody wanted to purchase a computer, asked me why modern laptops prior to 2018, why the VGA or port on doesn't carry any of the screws that use to fasten the cable to. And actually, there is a very good reason why they didn't, in later years, that they didn't include that. Because a lot of times, what people would do, it's bad enough on the back of computers. What they would do is, like if they had a cable in part of the way and they're trying to remove it, they would actually snap that head off, and then there you'd sit. And I've actually had quite a few computers that people have brought me, and they were paranoid because I couldn't screw their computers down. And they said it was something that you can do. And I'm like, it's a long shot, but it can be done. So what you have to do is, when you're working on, very carefully without stripping any threads, is you take the smallest drill bit that you have, and very carefully using butter cut. That was stuff that was sold at Mills Fleet Farm. I think they changed the name of the product since then, but I have an old can of butter cut that I got from my grandfather. It's butter cut is what you use. It's like a can that's about yay tall, not thick, full of. It's like a gel that you squirt on. It's like for boring through metal, and you put it down on the area that you're going to drill, so that your drill bits don't get so hot that it scores the metal, or that it gets so hot that it snaps and breaks. And it also prolongs the life of your drill bits by using that when you're drilling through metal. So I highly recommend. And an alternative to that is using WD-40. I think the WD-40 is actually a little bit messier, and you can't get it exactly precisely where you want it. The problem is when you're drilling through with WD-40, WD-40 tends to splatter a little bit more than that butter cut. So for that project, I would recommend using butter cut. But if you do it, you have to be very careful not to get it all over the components, because you can short circuit anything when you're doing stuff like that if you're not careful. And you don't want to drill that long either. You want to drill long enough where, I would say, less than an inch, at least like a centimeter hole. Because you want it long enough that you can get a tap. Use like a tap and die set. The smallest one that you can find in your set. Like a 1/64th or 1/32 or something around that caliper. And you just carefully thread it in there. And then you work it back and forth a little bit. That's how I did it, but that was probably about 2.5 hours worth of work. And to be honest, it really wasn't worth that. But when you have picky customers, sometimes you got to go the extra mile just to satisfy certain customers, and that's exactly what I did. And sometimes they'll even sit there for the 2 hours looking right over your shoulders to see how you're doing it, and then they sit there and applaud and go, I never would have figured that out. And so I haven't, I've only done that once out of all the years of computer work that I've been doing. I've never ran into another job like that. They didn't want anything else done with it. They just wanted those two little posts where the VGA went because they were ignorant enough to snap not one, but two. So I probably could have saved time on doing it, but better do things right. And I did manage to get the head or the snapped off screw out. And the holes, luckily, were not stripped out, or the threaded holes, rather. So, most expensive part of the job was just doing it. Because I already had the drill bit, and I already had the cordless drill, and I already had the butter cut, and I already had the tap, or the die, rather. No, the die is the other part. Tap is where you can tap the thread. So basically, that's if anybody out there wants to know how to do that, maybe I'll make a video on doing that sometime. I'll probably save that video for winter because we got some big plans coming this year. As far as I would like to start a different series with some guest appearances. I haven't found any guests yet, but you never know. Because we're thinking of doing a financial series. We're thinking about doing a marketing or sales series. Some informational stuff. So if I can get the right people lined up to do it, then we'll make it possible. If not, we'll probably hold off until the next year after. We'll get some. Thinking what else to do in a segment on lawn care, and it's very unconventional for this channel, but well, it's a dime a dozen basically. What I mean by that is you got to switch things up and give people stuff that they're not expecting, and just kind of. So basically, the interesting thing I was hearing the other day was with the COVID-19 is actually just another big cover up for another. Because the country is actually a lot of places that are still closed. Yeah, my philosophy is if you don't open by July, you're never going to open again. Because if you've been closed since March, that's almost 5 months. And chances are a lot of those places that have been closed 4 months going in 5 months and have no plans of possibly reopening, your days are numbered as a business if you're not open by July. I hate to say that, but the writing is pretty much on the wall at this point. But the thing that's really lingering and really dragged out longer than it should is all the churches that were closed. Church is an essential service. A lot of churches do counseling for those with issues and psychological problems and mental health, and other spiritual needs. And so that's, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have actually ended their lives over COVID because they didn't see any way out of it. They didn't think it was ever going to end. And it's kind of sad looking at that they couldn't go and get help, but yet liquor stores were an essential. Walmart was an essential. They should have made churches an essential thing because the church actually does more for the people than the government. The government is good for dilly squat. The only thing that you have to keep in check is that you don't trust what the government tells you on TV. You don't trust what's going on right now. The only thing that's accurate right now is all the protests that are going on and all the violent protests. There's no need for all that violent protest. It's all stupid. To sit there and burn down churches and burn down convenience stores and mom and pop establishments and bars and killing people and burning cars and burning police stations and stuff. That behavior needs to stop because martial law will fall into place if radical behavior like that occurs. I'm not joking. If anything like that happens, or if that trend continues to happen, I hate to say this, but Trump will release the army or the United States Army out on the public streets with rubber bullets and tear gas for all these millennials to be out protesting and blowing up things and threatening people and burning buildings down. But they don't need to do that. They have nothing to complain about. They don't contribute to society. They don't do anything. They just sit at home and play video games all day. That's all millennials are good for. And yet, everybody thinks the funny thing was 29. The meme online was 2019. You're a terrible person for staying at home and playing video games all day. But then 2020, you're the role model for staying home and playing video games. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Just because COVID was going on doesn't mean that it automatically makes everybody role models for staying home and staying safe. It just honestly, it just blows me away. I've been very fortunate during the time of COVID because my 3 places of employment, or actually 2 places rather, they didn't shut down and they didn't lay any of us off. That was for the daycare I was working for. And in the church I was working for, they didn't lay anybody off. But there's only like 5 people on staff, and they're not all there at the same time. I tend to work second shift a lot of times. Like from 11 in the morning until 8 or 9 at night. So that's even on flex time. Even if I can't get there at 11 o'clock in the morning, I get there like at 1 or 3 or 5. I don't even have to put in a full day's because there's not really anybody checking my time clock. They don't actually even have a time clock. I got a piece of paper in a notebook and I just write the hours down from the time I start until the time I end. And then I give it to the secretary, and in return, the secretary gives it to the bookkeeper. And then a month later, after all the hours get added up, I get paid. So basically, it doesn't get any more straightforward than that. And even here during the pandemic, things are a little slow, but I didn't actually technically shut down the business. I still worked. Since I don't have an open sign out, and I don't have a set business hours from like 6 a.m. in the morning until 11 p.m. at night, basically, I was still free to operate like normal. And the funny thing is, I only get one person here at a time. So there's really no laws broken in here because, and usually when people come in, they don't like to hover around me anyway. So I don't mind. I don't mind that when people don't hover. Not only is it not only is it nerve wracking when you got somebody standing right over your shoulder watching your every move. It's like for years when you live at home or you live or you're at school and you got teachers that are constantly hovering around you to see what you're doing on a computer, or if you're at home for younger millennials and you got your parents that are always constantly snooping on you to see what you're doing on the computer, and that gets kind of nerve wracking when you got people that are doing when you got people doing that. But well, even when you got a family at home and you got little kids running around watching what you do on the computer, if you got a family of your own, or if you got little, or if you got little young children, be careful what you do in there because they're gonna if they see something that's inappropriate, chances are they're gonna act it out and act like it on public. So if you got to do that stuff, do it behind closed doors, or get yourself an office like this and conduct your business that way. I don't do anything that repulsively weird. That's shameful. When you're trying to conduct a business, it's not really a good idea to conduct it out of your house when you got kids running around or wife or girlfriend or if you're living with your parents. Not only is it dangerous to have a business in your house, because when you got people in and out of your house all day, chances are one of them might be casing your house and checking you out to see what you got. So people are like, well, why don't you just give this place up and go work from home? And I'm like, too many distractions for one, and two, security and privacy and safety is another. And I don't give out my home address either, and I never will, because one, I truly value my privacy, and I don't like it when people are stalking or prowling around. I've had people in the past that have stalked me, and I felt kind of weirded out. That was years. That was when I was back in school or high school. Yeah, that certain teacher. He was a queer. He didn't last very long. He only lasted like maybe 4 years, and then he went to a different school, and then he only lasted there for 4 years, and he also got his teaching license revoked, which I'm very glad. I'm not naming names, but there are some teachers out there that are not meant to be teachers, and this guy was definitely not meant to be a teacher because some of his mannerisms and some of his behaviors were very, very frightening and very repulsive. So, if you're a teacher, don't stalk your students and don't stalk your parents. They're not going to like it. And the worst thing is when they even get the guts to get out of their vehicle and snoop around your property and look in your garbage and poke around your garage and see if they can get in the house. If you have a teacher that ever pulls that stunt, definitely call the police and report them. Don't mess around with them because things will escalate. Well, then you got some teachers out there that meddle with in between parents and students' lives. And if you're a teacher, don't interfere or don't get involved in a student's home life. Because not only will you complicate things, but chances are you're not going to be able to resolve the issue anyway. You leave it up to social workers and judges and law enforcement. So enough on that topic. Another interesting question that we're going to get back to the question. So I'm going to elaborate on the question, or on the first question a little bit. There's not that many questions. There's only like three questions, but I thought I'd just make a quick live stream of it. And back in like a lot of the laptops, I remember having the studs on there for for screwing your VGA cables or serial cables, or like your HP NC like 6120s, your Dell Latitudes had them. A lot of your HP 6510Ps and 6910s and 6515s, they had those posts. Lenovo and IBM for years had them. I think Acer and Asus, definitely Macintoshes had them like the Power PCs. A lot of Macintosh was a totally different. A lot of their earlier computers, they didn't use CRTs; they just used CGA style plugs. So CGA that's another topic for another video. The technology is interesting, but I don't want to make the stream that long. I'm kind of worn outside. I've been going since. Actually, I haven't gone to bed yet, or at all today or yesterday. So I don't advise doing it. Don't pull all-nighters. Allot yourself some time to rest. Typically, This is really outrageously crazy, but I'd recommend you getting at least 12 to 13 hours of sleep a night. Not only will you feel refreshed in the morning, but health wise and for your well being, you will benefit very well if you get 13 hours of sleep a night. Even 6 hours is not enough, or 5, or 4. Sometimes even 7 hours isn't enough. At least at a minimum, get 9. But if you really want a beauty sleep, try to get 12, 13 hours. I'm not talking sleeping until 10 or 11 a.m. I'm talking go to bed by not like by 8, get up by 7 the next morning. Okay, it's not quite 12, 13 hours, 11 hours, but even 11 hours is fine. Well, if you slept until 9 in the morning, you definitely would get your 13 hours in. So that's my advice to you for tonight or for this morning. But if you can't do that, at least at a minimum, get 9 hours. Because the more sleep you get, you will do it. You'll perform your job better. Health wise, will be better. So let's. I would if I could squeeze in 13 hours a night. That would be a miracle. But I don't think that's ever going to happen. At one point in time, I was getting 13 hours, and I go to bed by at least 8:30, and you get up at like 8 in the morning, and you're all rested. And so that's question number 2 was why are laptops discontinuing VGA and well, a lot of the reason that they're doing that is a lot of projectors now and monitors, TVs even, a lot of them won't have DisplayPort. And DisplayPort works fine for displaying. With DisplayPort, they also have built-in audio, so you don't have to use a separate 1.8 millimeter cable coming out of your headphone port, so you can get the sound out of the same cable as your video. So, and the HDMI is the same, practically the same thing. So if you got a monitor with built-in speakers, you will get a better, you have a better setup. So that's the reason. And besides, VGA, that technology is kind of behind the times in a lot of corporate places. A lot of them are using DisplayPort monitors, HDMI monitors. The technology is there, you might as well use it. So, and even like DVD drives are the reason that you don't find a lot of laptops with DVD drives anymore is a lot of software now you get off the internet. You don't use a lot of disks anymore. In some cases, you still might use floppies for certain very applications, but as far as the computers go, it's the kind of thing. Well, how do you put it? I got to think on this for a second. Sometimes you hit when your mind goes blank on you. Yeah, it'll come back to me, but well, well, once I get that thought back, we'll talk more about it tomorrow. So, thank you for watching the stream. God bless everybody. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Enjoy the month of June, and we'll see you.